Hi, welcome to the shop. Today we're going to be doing some powder coating of some mugs and some cups, but this is actually kind of a follow-up to some stuff that I've already done. So watch this video and let me know what you think. That's kind of lame. Alright, today I'm out in the shop. I'm going to be doing some powder coating. I'm going to powder coat a bottle and I'm going to put a stencil on it after putting a base coat on it. Some of you have asked how the process works and what it looks like when I'm in process doing this stuff. It's really a fairly easy process. It's one of those things that's kind of like learning the game of checkers. You can learn it very quickly, but to master it takes a long time. My spray booth is just a home-built booth. It's got a house fan, a whole house fan, and underneath, down at the bottom, it's got 2 cylinder filters. That fan pulls all the extra powder through here and keeps it away from me. So I do have a dust mask in case I'm doing some really big projects, which I do hope to get to because I have finished my oven. This is my big oven. This one should allow me to do trike frames, for example, but I have the oven capacity to do it if I need to. But for today, I'll just be using my little oven that I got off Craigslist for the cups because there's no need to fire up the big oven to just do a cup. So I've decided to go ahead and use 3 colors today. I'm going to use a base white, which will cover the entire water bottle, and this will give it the base color, and that one just happens to be called base white. Then I'm going to use a shimmer candy teal, and this will be the background that we'll have with it. When I put the stencil on it, this will be the other color. And then just to give it all some durability, I'm going to use a powder called Super Durable Wet Clear. And this makes it really shiny, and it will lock in all of the colors and lock in kind of the base and the teal together and give it a nice overall shiny finish. So let me explain the process a little bit of powder coating for those of you who don't know what powder coating is or how it works. Essentially what happens is you have a powder substance that's a color that you put in a specialized gun. This gun provides an electrical charge to the powder, and then it goes to the item that you're powder coating. Typically it's a metal item, but a lot of different things have been powder coated, but typically it's metal. This item is on a stand which is grounded, and this goes down to a ground wire which goes to a ground rod outside, and then the powder statically sticks to it. And then what you do is once it gets stuck there, then you take it over and you bake it in an oven. And it causes the powder to melt. It's kind of a thermoplastic, if you will. In the meantime, I'm also going to be putting a stencil on. So once I get the base coat coated and then pull it out of the oven, you'll see what happens that I have to cool it down and put this decal on. And then there's a little process in the middle there where I put it in just long enough to let the powder, what's called, flow out, which basically means that it melts just enough that I can touch it, but then I have to pull the decal off, which I'm using as a stencil. This is just Oracal 651 vinyl. So it's quite an involved process, especially when you're doing a stencil that's this detailed, but it should look really cool when I pull it off, and then it'll reveal the white underneath with the teal on top. This is actually the first time I've ever filmed one of these, because there can be things that go wrong. And I do have some chemical stripper that I have in my strip tank, and in fact there's a cup that's in there right now that was a mistake that is being chemically stripped from the powder coat, so I can reuse the cup. Okay, so that's the first coat, the base coat of the base white. And by the way, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to do all of this while holding a camera, which is why I have the time lapse going, so I may just do some voiceovers later. Now what I do is, since I'm done with the base white, what I'll do is I'll put the leftover powder back in the bag to conserve as much powder as possible. And then the cleanup on a powder coating gun like this, a simple one like this is a very basic model. It's nothing more than taking the gun, dumping the extra powder out, and cleaning out the bottle with air. One of the things that's very critical about powder coating is that everything stays dry, which is why you notice I have an air filter on here. I've got an air filter on where my air comes in from my compressor. Plus I've got a lot of hose to cool off any of the air, because compressed air, as you know, it produces water. Okay, so now that's set, and I'll let it cool off because it's about 400 degrees right now, and then I can get to putting the stencil on and coating the next color. Okay, so this is the part that's going to be quite fun, is putting this stencil on. So I'm going to have to peel it off the backing paper. So this is how vinyl decals work. You peel it off the backing paper, and then I'm going to have to stick it on here. And it's going to need to be straight. It's going to need to wrap around. It's always fun putting vinyl on curved surfaces. As I wrap around the cup and get to the other side, I'll determine which parts I want to cut off so the overlap doesn't look like it overlap. It'll look like the design is just flowing into itself, which is the idea. So I'll have to determine how much of this I want to cut off, and I'll also determine which side I want to cut off. Because I knew I was going to do that anyway, and so it'll be a determination of which part is going to get cut. Probably this top part because it's going to be easiest. Okay, so it actually didn't take as long as I thought. So it actually didn't take that long, but as you can see, now I have the pattern that comes from this side of the cup and the pattern that comes from this side of the cup. They blend seamlessly together. So the picture overlaps and underlaps the other side of the picture, so it gives it no seam on that side. So now what we'll do is I'll spray the teal on top of this and then bake it, and then we'll pull the stencil. Pulling the stencil is a really cool part. Okay, now this part in the oven is really kind of critical. I don't want to leave it in there too long. I just want the powder to do what's called flowing out, which means it just starts to melt, which means that it's going to stick to the cup and I can touch it once it cools down, but it's not fully cured, so it wouldn't be complete this way. But this is kind of a critical part, so I'm going to watch it closely. So you can see how you can start to see the stencil, but it's still kind of a flat color. It's still kind of flat. I don't know if you can tell that on camera. So I want it to gloss over just a little bit, so I'll leave it in there just a little bit longer, and then I'll start pulling the stencil. So I also noticed after it came out of the oven, there's one little spot on here that is a little bit light, and so I'm going to touch that up and then put it back in the oven to do the partial cure, and then I'll put the clear on it. So I just wanted to show you that there was this one little place, and this is probably where I was blowing it off from the bottom. So the cup is completely cool, so I'm going to touch up just a little bit, ever so slightly right here, to get that to cover evenly, and then it'll go back into the oven. So this is where the art part comes in, and that you know that it's handmade. So I noticed when I pulled it out this time that there are some blobs on here that I don't like. It doesn't give it a smooth finish. So you guys got to see my first practice on this, because I'm gonna have to take this cup and strip it all down and fix it, or make another one. So I have to do the whole thing all over again, because there's a couple of errors on here that are just too obvious and I don't like. Yeah, so you can see that there's a couple of anomalies here. I don't know what happened there. Got the paint on too thick, and where I tried to touch it up, it didn't really cover very well. But the rest of it covered very nicely, nice and even. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is redo this one. And that's why guys who do powder coat have chemical stripper. So I've got to go in, cut another stencil, and do the whole process all over again. Well, yuck. It turned out, it's way too heavy. I put on way too much, and it took forever to do it. So, as they say, third time's a charm. So I'm going to try it one more time, and if that doesn't work, I guess I just won't do any more for today. Unbelievable. I'm so glad that this is not my source of income, because I would be really frustrated. I'm glad it's just a hobby right now. But, like I said, if it were easy, everyone would do it, right? Alright, I guess today is just not the day to be doing powder coating. I don't know why this didn't work at all. Now I have these spots that showed up after I got the teal on, Had these spots that showed up, they were not there before I put it in the oven. I cannot figure out what in the heck I am doing wrong. I think today may be done for powder coating for a while because this is just frustrating beyond belief. This is the third cup and something has gone wrong with every single one of them. I may try and get a simpler graphic and see if that helps. I can't figure it out. What a hassle. I'm so glad that this is for me and it's not for a paying customer, because I would have lost money at the beginning of the day this morning. So good thing that this is a hobby, right? All right, I'll try again later.
72 hours later.
Okay, so not to be beaten by this thing, I'm gonna give it one more try. I've taken one of the cups that I had, or one of the water bottles that I had done already. This is the one that you've seen in the past. I stripped it down and got it all cleaned up, and I'm gonna give it one more try to see if I can make this work. Okay, so I got the bottle back in the oven on the base white. So I'm just gonna pull it out of the oven and let it cool off. It's a nice day today. We've got a nice cool breeze, so I'm gonna naturally let it cool down slowly instead of trying to rush the process. Instead of trying to rush the process, and we'll see if that makes a difference. Okay, so the strangest thing has happened. It started to get really frustrating because I started to spray this cup again, even a suggested color change, and the powder was just not sticking. You could see all of the muck behind it. It was like somebody had been rubbing alcohol on it and rubbing paint thinner on it and throwing dirt at it and everything. It was just a mess, and I couldn't figure out why. So I totally, completely disregarded all of the rules, and I went in and washed it with soap and water. I thought, I'm gonna try something. I'll leave the decal on it, and I washed all of it off, the soap and water, and then I let it dry, went and had lunch, and now it's sticking. I've got a couple of places where it's just got the tiniest bit of back ionization, and I'm not gonna mess with it because I've gotten it to stick pretty uniformly right now. So I'm gonna throw that in the oven and see how it works. Just the weirdest thing. I can't figure out why this is happening at all. So now that I see that it's happening like this, I actually may blow all this powder off and try the candy teal again, because that's the color that's really wanted. I don't know. You got me on this one.
Several bad puns later.
Hopefully this one will work. This time it laid on very smooth. The powder just flowed right on. It's very smooth. So hopefully when I put it in the oven and cure it off, then nothing anomalous will show up that I just can't see right now. This time it seemed to go on very smooth. I disregarded all of the rules for typical powder coating. They say never wipe it off or clean it or anything like that. What I did with this one, cured the base coat, put the stencil on, made sure that the stencil was in really good, didn't even wear gloves, using my bare hands, and then I took it in and I washed it with dish soap and water. And I brought it back out here and I blew it off, got it completely dry, and it laid almost flawlessly. So let's see how this one turns out. Okay, honestly, I'm very excited this time because this is how it's supposed to come out. So what I'm doing now is I'm cooling it off, and then I'm gonna put a final clear coat on it and call it good. Finally, after only 6 or 7 bottles. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield. All right, so I finally got it done. I've not had quite as much trouble with a bottle before than this one. Took me 6 or 7 tries. Boy, it was frustrating. But it's done. So, just so you know, it's not always easy. It doesn't always work out perfectly. But, as Winston Churchill said, never, 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 or however many he said, quit. Never quit. So, kept going. It's not perfect, but it's much closer to what we wanted. So, there you go. Until next time. Cheers.